morning, Eastern Oregon, and welcome to this March the 1st edition of AM Live on EOA, your connection to Eastern Oregon. How you doing, man?
Second Monday.
Second Monday.
Yeah. It's not the first Friday. That's for sure. That's all we got on this show. Second Monday and first Friday.
Oh, the first Friday is Thursday. See, yeah.
Yeah. That's how you get through it.
Yeah. How's it going, man?
Awesome. LeGrand has a playoff game this Saturday at home. The boys. So we'll see how that goes for the basketball team. They ended up winning the GOL, so they didn't even end up having to have a play-in game. EOU basketball's done. Wrestling goes to nationals this weekend. Wrestling for the high school is done. 3 state champs.
That's
Carson
awesome.
brothers, and Josh Collins, and then a state champion Burns, or a state champion Garrett Burns. I almost said his dad's name. Out of Dembler. And then I think I was looking at, we were talking about Tim Cozy yesterday. I think he won the 200 individual medley and the 50 backstroke state championship out at Cove. And that's in swimming. And then, just getting ready to transition into spring. EOU's they've already played 20 games in baseball and 15 in softball.
Wow.
The softball team plays 17 games on the road before they come home because of the weather. I mean, we don't have turf here so it's kind of hard to play this time of year out there. It's a little soft.
Yeah. Well, now the turf field that they put in down at Pioneer Park, are they going to use that this year?
The EOU?
Yeah.
Yeah. EOU is playing on that field for a couple of years until they get a field built. The baseball team.
Okay.
The softball team has their own stadium, Peggy Anderson Field.
Okay. Oh, but you're saying those are the ones that have all those games on the road.
Yeah, the softball team.
Got it. Okay.
Yep.
So, and we're hoping to do an interview with the championship wrestlers, right? Today?
Yeah, that. Clell texted me last night and said, "Do you want to get these guys on on your show?" And I was like, "Well, yeah." And so we worked it out. Hopefully they'll be here. I got confirmation. He started a group text because I've been trying to get Clell's son on my show for a year, Braden, the senior.
Yeah.
And he keeps ducking and dodging me. Well, Clell said he put them all in a group text and said, "Here, you guys need to be there at 4:00 tomorrow, period." And then all of them gave a thumbs up.
It's like, yeah. The problem is he can't even say, "Or you're going to run laps." Yeah.
Oh yeah, you can. They're his kids.
Oh yeah, I guess that's true.
2 of them are his kids.
2 of them are his boys. Yeah.
Yeah. And then it's a senior, a junior, and a sophomore.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty well represented. Yep.
Cool.
I'm kind of excited about it because I've been trying to talk to Braden for a year.
And you said that, so a couple of the champions are there's only one of them that's a senior. I mean, the point is there's a lot of strength in that team still up and coming.
Oh, there was only 3 seniors on the whole team. They had 14 state placers this year.
Wow. 14
state placers, 3 seniors. And that's the most in LeGrand history. And we won 4 state championships. We won 2 out of the last 3.
Wow.
So, and Josh Collins, the state champ at 138, he got second his freshman year, second his sophomore year, and then finally won it this year as a junior.
Wow.
And then Braden, obviously, his 3rd state championship in a row. And then his little brother, Kai, I think he got 3rd last year as a freshman and then won it this year as a sophomore.
Wow.
Yeah, a lot of there's a lot of Kai has to be chasing 3. He wants to be the second person because Braden's the first 3-time state champion ever at LeGrand.
Yeah. Well, there's no reason why he couldn't make that happen.
Yeah, chase his brother down and
yeah.
Get him. And then for let's see. There's one other thing I was going to talk about. Girls basketball is going on the road to play their playoff game. they had a play-in game or whatever you want to call it on Saturday,
right,
against Valley Catholic, I think is what it was called.
Yeah,
and they absolutely demolished that team, and then so they'll go on the road and play a playoff game. So, well, I see playoffs work so much different now than when I was in high school, because back then you if you won your play-in game, the tournament was at Memorial Coliseum. All the teams went there. Nowadays, it's weird. Like even the wrestling thing, just 2 years ago or 3 years ago, when we won the state championship, from 6A down to 3A or 2A was all at the Memorial Coliseum. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now they got them all spread out. Like the 4A was in Redmond. I don't know. It might be a COVID thing. They don't want like so many people in one building or whatever. I don't know, but it's just weird. It's been weird lately. I don't get it.
Okay, so let's look at. It's raining out there.
That. Crappy weather.
That's our weather cam on the corner of the building here in downtown LeGrand. Let's see.
That guy needs to get a cover for his gear.
Yeah. Eastern Oregon's really not the place to be during this time of the year if you don't have a permanent house. But
hey, when I was waiting for that bus to get there on Sunday night, at first I was sitting right out there on that bench, bench right out front.
Yeah.
I only lasted about 5 minutes out there because I wanted to be able to see the bus coming,
Right.
I lasted about 5 minutes and it was freezing. I went right back into my car. And I was like, nope. I'm not sitting out here anymore. And thankfully, the bus driver's wife, who I didn't even know, pulled up next to me, and I said, "Ma'am, when they get here, when the bus get here, can you keep those lights on?" And she goes, "Yeah, I'm the bus driver's wife." And she's like, "I can tell you exactly when they're going to be here. He's been in contact with me." So it was not.
So you had some inside info.
Inside, yeah, and I didn't even know her.
All right. Well, here, let's take a look at Gabe's weather.
Fired off.
Heading into the day on Tuesday, it looks like this. Most of us will top out into the 50s and even some places 60s, although Meacham will be colder into the upper 40s. Rain showers will become more scattered in the mix of those sun breaks. Drier than not down towards the south. Heading into the day planner for Tuesday for LeGrand, it does look like this. We start out in the lower 40s at 9 o'clock with some showers continuing in the morning, becoming drier towards the first part of the afternoon hours as we see increasing sun breaks, warming temperatures well into the 50s. Southerly winds will start to pick up a bit heading into the evening hours, up to 25 mile per hour wind gust in spots as we start to see those showers working their way back in. Heading into the short-term forecast for the Grand Ronde Valley, it does look like this. We'll top out at 54 degrees for Tuesday, drop into the upper 30s overnight. Scattered showers continue on Wednesday. We will be cooler as we see more cloud cover, although rain will be picking up in the evening.
He's so good, dude.
He is. The kid is so
I hope
smooth.
nobody ever finds him. We got to just keep him in our pocket forever.
I know it. I know it. And he's just, he's just a machine too. That's the thing.
It's crazy. Like I don't understand how he's got that much. Well, I guess I do, because like I was that dedicated to sports when I was that age.
Yeah.
And so he's that dedicated to
right.
weather.
But with sports, you have that team aspect that keeps pulling you in. I mean, if you
but he's probably he's probably one of those kind of people that does it on his own.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
It's crazy. He's a grinder.
He is. Well, hey, so Bob and Colleen Skinner are here with us, and they're going to be joining us in just a minute. They were missionaries in the Ukraine for 17 years, from 95 to 2012, and they live in Montana right now. And anyhow, they're going to be with us, going to be talk to us about Ukraine and living there and what the people are like, and they'll be with us just right after this commercial.
EOA Live is your connection to Eastern Oregon. Get the latest and most relevant news in 2 minutes or less with Megan Demersion on our evening news broadcast. We cover Eastern Oregon's weather daily with Gabe, the EOA Live weather kid, with an extended forecast every Friday. Watch Doddsy on EOA Live Sports to get the latest sports information and interviews with local coaches, athletes, and more. See Brent and Doddsy goof and gaff with local guests on EOA Live's morning talk show, AM Live on EOA. We're available across the board, including Facebook, YouTube, Amazon Fire, and of course, our very own website, eolive.tv. We even have our own Roku channel with 24/7 live stream EOA content. You can also listen to our shows on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and many other popular podcast apps. You can get everything all in one place with the EOA Live app, available on Android, iOS, and the Amazon App Store. EOA Live, your connection to Eastern Oregon.
Hey, Bob and Colleen, how are you? You're muted on your end. And I can't unmute you.
I'm sorry.
There we go.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think the two most used phrases in the last 2 years is unprecedented and you're muted. Those two things. Yeah. Well, hey, thanks for being with us today. And Bob and Colleen, I knew in my college days. I don't think I've seen you in person probably since then, but dear friends and just really wonderful people. And I appreciate you guys being here. Now, Bob was raised in John Day, so he's got an Eastern Oregon connection, and we'll talk about that. He went to Boise State, played football there. Colleen is a missionary kid, grew up in the Philippines. Were you born in the Philippines? I'm trying to remember.
No, I was 3 when my parents were appointed as missionaries. Yes.
Okay. And so, and then I think you guys met each other at NNU or NNC, Northwest Nazarene in Napa. So that's a little bit of the background, but, how are you guys doing this morning? How's the weather? Where are you at? Where are you at in Montana?
Yeah, we're in Billings, and it's warming up. Your weather is very similar to ours. Yeah.
A week ago, negative 24.
Well,
to have Eastern Oregon weather here.
Yeah. Well, and I grew up in Wyoming, and Montana and Wyoming is kind of my stomping grounds. And so when I relocated here to La Grande almost 25 years ago, I found the weather very similar. The weather, the people, geographically, it was just very similar. You know, more rain here, more moisture, but very similar in the way that just the people are, and so on and so forth. So, well, talk to us about, I guess, tell us how you got to Ukraine. Why don't you start there, and when you did, and if I'm remembering, I mean, we talked a little bit offline. You started there in '95, and that was not very long after the Ukraine had its independence. Okay. And so now here we are on the other end of that, where Russia is trying to take back their independence. I don't know. Just, we're kind of ignorant about this. We just want you to talk to us and tell us stuff. People, you have the opportunity to ask questions through Facebook comments, and we will funnel them to Bob and Colleen. But yeah, why don't you just kind of launch and tell us what you know about how you got there and how you found the people when you were there, and so on and so forth.
Well, I will go clear back to when I was growing up in the Philippines. They had the largest Christian broadcasting radio station in Manila. And as a little girl, I used to hear somehow they would beam their programs into the Soviet Union. And so as a little girl, I heard stories out of the Soviet Union, people giving their stories of being great persecution, great suffering, and yet seeing God's hand at work through the church, through people who were faithful during that time of suffering. But some of those stories as a little girl were quite scary. And it was when I got to Northwest Nazarene University that we began to do mission trips through the choir that Brent and I were a part of, going to all parts of the world. And our director, Dr. Hill, his son, had direct contacts with people who were suffering in the Soviet Union. And Dr. Hill even taught us songs in Russian. And we had this heart for that part of the world. Still at that point, I never dreamed that God would lead me someday to that part of the world. So when Bob and I were first appointed as missionaries, it was back to the Philippines. So we served for 5 years in the Philippines. Our second boy was born there. And then the church asked us to consider transferring to Kiev, Ukraine. And I was just like that, Brent. At that point, I did not know where that was on the map. To me, the whole Soviet Union was Russia. And which is very interesting because we're watching that again. But so when we're praying for Kiev, Ukraine, not even hardly knowing, where that was, we started digging into where is this? What's happening in Kiev, Ukraine? And it hadn't been long since Chernobyl had this greatest nuclear disaster the world had ever known was right in Ukraine, still under Soviet days. But these people were fleeing, taking their babies in particular, to parts of the world that were safer for their children. So then, that's what I knew. We had 2 boys at the time, a baby, and I thought, taking them to a place where this nuclear disaster had happened, it was just very disconcerting to us. And we prayed much about that transfer. Well, before we knew it, we were being transferred to Kiev, and had our 3rd child while we were there. And then began to, this whole part of the world began to open up to us. And when we first arrived, our first memories were, it was dark, it was cold, and people rarely smiled. And we had no idea the history that would unfold before us of a people that had suffered greatly. Their whole history is a history of great suffering. And yet, as we got to know these precious people, I will tell you that sitting around their tables, having tea together was their heart. And thousands upon thousands of times, we sat around people's kitchen tables, having tea, hearing their hearts, sharing together, finding out there was such a deep love, such a deep passion through their suffering, through surviving, through not just surviving, but thriving through that in their relationships with one another. That relationships are so key, that our hearts just began to break, but also envelop these amazing people with huge hearts. And that's where we got to raise our boys, with these amazing people that have risen through the history of suffering. And now, as we reflect on what they're going through again, we are in constant contact there, hearing their stories. And again, you just see this inner strength of character, of being able to look at this like we're going to make it through this, and doing it together, joining arms. And anyway, Bob and I have been reflecting, of course, through this whole time, reflecting on how in the world we ended up in Ukraine, and were impacted, and our boys impacted and shaped by these precious people. And it's been an emotional time for us. It's been, really
well. And you can see that kind of, when I first, when there were the first winds of a possible Soviet invasion a couple of months ago, I really thought that 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 the Ukrainians would just let the Russians come in, you know, because here you have this gigantic country that, I mean, when you look at the statistics, it's just very difficult for the Ukrainians to defend themselves against such an overwhelming force. But, you know, what we've seen over the last few weeks, at least in the media, is that spirit that you're talking about, that them rising up and wanting to hang on to their independence. And you know, and I'm, Bob, as I'm looking at you, it's like, you look a little Russian. I mean, you, it's like, I mean, I would imagine that people wondered, you know, are you sure you're not from here until you started talking? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we went there. It took us a while to really get to where we were comfortable with the language. We tried to learn the language there, which at the time everybody spoke Russian because it was just after the Soviet Union, and they made sure everybody spoke Russian in all of the 15 different republics that they had. So that's what we learned or tried to learn, and it took a while to get that and to really begin to once you have some of the language, you can begin to really grasp some of the cultural things, and so much is contained in language. And boy, the deeper we went, the better we got in Russian, the more that the culture just opened up. I mean, it just it was unbelievable, the richness, and it was, yeah, and it continues. It didn't stop. We never got to the bottom of it, not at all. But yeah, we really fell in love with the people there, and then to see, quite honestly, to see what God was doing. They'd had 80 years of communism, atheism, no God, materialism. The only thing that's real is what you can see, touch, and feel. And when the walls came down, when the Soviet Union broke apart, missionaries, we were some of those that went in there and were able to preach and able to share. They'd had Christianity for 1,000 years, but for the last 80, it had been kind of stomped out by the communists. And so those old 1,000-year-old roots started coming to life again. And then all these new Christians, new missionaries coming in. It was exciting to see what was happening to the country spiritually. And there was a hunger, not just for God, for anything spiritual. Of course, the missionaries were talking about God and bringing all of that, as well as the Orthodox Church. There were others that were there doing some other stuff, but it's just been amazing. It's been amazing to see how many people have been in Ukraine on work and witness trips, mission trips of one sort or another, whether they were going over to work with kids or to do medical missions or to build things or whatever. Not just with our churches. I mean, across the board, there have been, I'm going to say, hundreds of thousands of Americans that have been in Ukraine. And know people in Ukraine, and I think that's one reason why some of this news that's going on over there right now is so close, so dear to so many people here in America, is because there's plenty of Ukrainians here, as well as Russians in America over the last 30 years that have immigrated, but then there are so many Americans that have been in Ukraine, been in those homes, been around those tables. What is happening now is it's very close, very dear to the heart.
So what are you hearing? I mean, I would imagine you're still in contact with many of those people. What talk to us about some of the things that you're hearing from them, their experiences, that they're going through right now?
Well, yeah, I mean, we're the things that we're hearing are everything from you know, personal stories about things that are going on that people are experiencing personally, as well as we're hearing about, you know, please call NATO and have them protect our airspace. I mean, our friends are asking us that very thing, and so it's yeah, all kinds of different things. Colleen wants to share.
Vladimir. The leader for our church there, Vladimir, and his wife Sylvia, they posted a picture of his mother, and we know his mother very, very dearly, have been in her home many, many times, and she in our home. He posted a picture of her, of them trying to get to a bomb shelter, and she's in her 80s with a walker, very, very difficult. But he said she began to reflect that as a 7-year-old little girl, she remembers the bombs from the Nazis coming over her area and having to hide. And she herself is an ethnic Russian. She married an ethnic Ukrainian. And so our pastor leader there, he's both Russian and Ukrainian, that's the whole thing. There's such a brotherhood, such a history there. But she said, I never would have dreamed that I would be trying to hide from the bombs of my own people. And that's been a heartbreaking story. And she just said, I can't do this anymore. I'm going to stay in my apartment and pray. And anyway, so that was one of our stories. Maybe you could tell about Zena.
Yeah, there's lots of stories. Some of our churches are taking in, most of our churches are taking in refugees. So they're in Ukraine, but they're in areas of Ukraine that are not being targeted by the Russians. And so people fleeing from Kiev or people fleeing from Kharkov, they are being brought into churches, into people's homes. I mean, our churches are doing many different things. We have these things called crisis care kits. It's a 2-gallon Ziploc bag that they were sent over as humanitarian aid, mostly for different crises that would happen in Ukraine, whether it was a hurricane, whether it was flooding or different things. Recently, they've been shipped over because of what's been going on in eastern Ukraine for the last 8 years. So they take, and a crisis care kit is basically just items of hygiene, toothbrushes and soap and shampoo, and there's a stuffed animal in there if they're given to kids, and different things. But washcloth, different things like that, combs, nail clippers. Those are being distributed. People fleeing, I mean, they just get out of there, and many times don't even bring anything with them. Some of the people being called up, the men that are 18 years old to 60 years old, are being called up to defend cities, defend air bases, defend bridges. They literally just go. And so maybe after 3 or 4 days, they'll get a break, and these crisis care kits are distributed, and they actually have something that, I mean, they haven't been cleaned for 4 days, so they have something to clean up with. And anyway, but it's our people that are sharing those kinds of things with people. It's their own husbands, their own brothers that are being called up. One of the gals in our church, her name is Zena. Her husband was called up. They didn't see him for about 3 days straight. He came home for roughly 5 minutes. He had to pick up some stuff. They were passing by. He got the truck to stop. He ran in, got something, literally kissed his wife, the 2 kids, and out the door again. And then a couple days later, Zena was able to share with her husband's a couple boxes of these crisis care kits. And he helped out his whole, I don't know, we would probably call it a platoon. And and they're guarding a couple bridges and a base. And you know, Zena and her family and the rest of the church, they gathered on Sunday, and she posted a thing on Facebook. She said, with a picture of some of the music group on the platform at the church, and then they were gathered around, and she said, well, it's Sunday, there's a war going on, but church must happen. And she showed a very somber group, but they'd been singing, they'd been praying. And then she showed the next picture was, she said, our pastors are in bomb shelters and they're having services there. Some of us are here at the church. And then we have those from our church that are on the front lines, and they were having services there as well. So that's kind of some of what's happening. And yeah, people just asking for help as well. And a lot of people, refugees, going to Poland, going to Hungary. We have plenty of friends that are getting their families out doing that way as well.
You know, you were there when, I mean, you got there not long after they received their independence. And then over that course of years, I would imagine that you saw them start to express themselves as a society in a way that they never did before. And now it's like there's this thing trying to claw them back to where they were. I don't know, maybe talk for a minute about the way that you saw people emerge over 17 years. And now, I mean, it sounds like their lives are very similar, or at least have been, to what ours have been. You know, I mean, to what Western folks are, and now this oppression is coming back in. I don't know, maybe talk a little bit about how you saw them emerge in that time that you were there.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the best way to describe it, but there was a growing, I mean, things progressed over time, that's for sure. When the Soviet Union broke apart, most of all of the structures of a country were up in Moscow. I mean, it was a very centralized government. And so all of the heads of all of the different agencies that a government would have, whether it's the IRS, our equivalent of the IRS, or whether it's the I'm trying to think of agencies, but if you can think of like big government agencies, they were all centralized up in Moscow. And so when the Soviet Union broke apart, these 15 republics did not have a developed system for their own republic, for their own country. So Ukraine did not ever have its own IRS, for example, or they had a division or whatever, if you will, of the Soviet Union kind of thing, but that wasn't developed for Ukraine. Just border patrol, customs agents, all of that stuff. It was all Soviet, and it was all centralized in Moscow. They obviously had people in Ukraine that served that, but that they weren't in charge of it. And so when all these new countries were being, well, they weren't new countries, but when they all became independent, they all had to form their own agencies. And that was an incredible learning process. We had some friends that came, he was doing his PhD studies, and he got involved with the development of Ukraine's finance department, banking and finance and all of that. It was fascinating to hear his stories about how things would develop and the conversations that would take place in Parliament and the different things that way. It was just fast to see how things would grow, how the country made stuff their own. But then this growing independence, this celebration of national holidays, and the growing importance, how those became even more significant over the years. Because they were this growing understanding of independence and who they were as a nation, not part of the bigger Soviet Union. And then the conflict between that, because the Soviet Union was big and very, very powerful. And some people still wanted that, and they didn't want this little Ukraine with its own little thing. They wanted to be part of. Anyway, you got all kinds of stuff going back and forth there, but that was part of the whole growing process. And then to see the development of language and how Ukrainian eventually became more used even than Russian. Anyway, there was a lot of growth that way, a lot of changes. And yeah, even the way people would dress, they would dress more with Ukrainian colors and Ukrainian traditional stuff more than the Russian stuff. So anyway, it was fascinating. I don't know if that answers your question, but there were.
One other thing that I was thinking about was when we first got there, their money system was, they called it kuponov. Well, it looked like coupon, and it took 150,000 of those to get a loaf of bread. And that was the money we were trying to deal with when we first got there. We were trying to purchase a building for a ministry center when we got there. Bob had to take that money in a suitcase on wheels because he had to pay for it in cash.
Wow.
Well, if it takes 150,000 of them to buy a loaf of bread, what is it going to cost to buy a building? He had to take a suitcase, open up this thing, and here's all this, Well, so we were there when the transition happened, and they first had their own money, this that it now is. And that whole transition, I felt like when we got there that we were living in the middle of a history book with the pages, just whipping by. Like you can't believe the changes happening right before your eyes. It was amazing.
So where do you see this going? I guess and I know that's a tough question, but you were a part of that transition and you saw this. How does this even, and I know that's what we're all asking is, what in the world is Putin thinking? How is this? Where does this even go on a practical basis? You're probably wondering that same thing.
Yeah, we are. And I think Putin, well, you can go a couple ways with it. I think Putin might have been thinking that there was enough sentiment in Ukraine to want to be part of something bigger, the former Soviet Union. Not that he wants to establish that, but he would like something like that. And I think that he might have been mistaken to think that there was enough sentiment in Ukraine to kind of sway the Ukrainians, and they would just kind of capitulate after a couple days and, okay, yeah, we're part of you and we're part of this bigger thing and we want to be one again. There is some of that sentiment in parts of the country by a few. But I think as we have seen over the last 5-6 days, the sentiment in Ukraine is not that way. They love their freedom, their independence, their voля. They love that and don't like the oppression and the strong hand. And so I think that even if Putin does get Kiev, he has a very, very long road ahead of him to deal. Even if you look at it historically, there's a town in kind of south central Ukraine. It's right on the Dnieper River called Zaporozhye. Cossacks. Sorry, I'm losing my words here. The Cossacks. We probably in America have seen the Ukrainians. They had kind of a ponytail sticking out of the back of their head, bald with the ponytail sticking out. Riding horses, the Cossacks going across the steppe, the plains. You know, they didn't submit to a lot of folks, and there's that spirit in a lot of the Ukrainians that they love their independence. And so even if he gets Kiev and he gets the president and all of that, which is an obvious goal for Putin, he is going to have decades of I mean, it's a hornet's nest. There will not be I guess I would say peace in the country. I mean, it is just going to be. That's the other side. I mean, there's those that would capitulate, and then there are many that will not. And it's just a long-term kind of thing. And I don't know. It's kind of, but who knows? Who knows? Really, I don't know. I don't know.
Well, let's pivot for just a minute. That's my favorite word that Kyle points out.
Favorite word.
So
you don't say it once a show, you're sick or something.
Yeah. Let's talk about, Bob, how you got from John Day to Boise to the Philippines to Ukraine to Montana. I mean, and Kyle might have some sports questions along the way too. But I don't know. Talk about that journey, because that seems interesting and unlikely.
Yeah. Well, John Day, Grant County. That was a great place to grow up. My dad was a forester, so we ended up with my dad's with the Forest Service over there on the Malheur. And so me and my three sisters, we grew up there in Canyon City. And Grant Union was double A at the time. I don't even know what they are now. I think I don't know anyway.
I think they're the same still. I think they're the same.
Still double A?
I think they're 2A.
Okay. Well, I know they've changed over the years. We used to play Burns and Vale and Mac High up there and Watonka, Bryant, anyway, Madras. Anyway, Nissa. But I loved basketball, but I was probably a little bit better at football. And so when I graduated from high school, all I knew was I wanted to play football and have my education paid for. And graduated with a guy from Grant Union that got a full ride scholarship to U of O, Steve Bach. Played at U of O, and then he went on and played in the pros, I think with Detroit most of the time, defensive lineman. I went to Boise State, walked on, eventually earned a scholarship after my first semester there, and they were paying for my education and all of that. I was involved with a group that we got Fellowship of Christian Athletes going at Boise State and Campus Crusade. I was involved with them, and it was through them that I played all 4 years. My sophomore year at Boise State, we won the national championship for our division, which was NCAA Division I. AA.
AA. Yeah. I was going to ask you about that. That was 1980.
That was 1980, yeah. And so I just loved AA, so went from high school AA to college AA. No.
Did you get a ring? Did you get a ring for that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Where is it?
It's downstairs right now in our room. Yeah. I should record it, actually.
So wait, that year, there's a really funny thing about that year. Not only did you get to play against Eddie Robinson, who's like, right. I mean, that's Eddie Robinson. He played Grambling State.
Right.
But your championship game was the least attended game of your whole season.
Right, I know. Yeah.
That's never happened before. That's the only time it's ever happened.
Right.
There's only like 8,000 people at the championship game.
Right, down in Sacramento. Yeah.
It's crazy. Like you were playing in front of 23,000 at Boise State, and then you're going to play for the national championship in front of 8,000.
Yeah.
It was like,
it was crazy. It really was
a crazy stat.
Yeah. But that was a great season. I mean, we had a lot of people from that team. Yeah, it was the year before we were actually even a stronger team, 79, but we were on probation. So,
who was the coach when you were there?
Jim Kreiner.
Oh, before he went to Iowa State.
Yes, I believe
he went to Iowa State after Boise State.
Iowa,
yeah. He must have went like during your career. Did you have two different coaches, or you have the same coach you were there the whole time?
I had the same coach.
So he left the year after you.
Yeah, Lyle Suttensich was right after. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I have to know about Boise State. One of my best friends, who I used to do the Johnny Ballgame show with, he's on 93.1 The Ticket in Boise, and he started the Johnny Ballgame show in Boise, and they follow Boise State big time, man.
Yeah, very good.
They bleed blue over there. It's crazy. I'm an EOU fan. That's
sorry.
all I follow.
No. No, they're good. They're good. Yeah, but I had good years at Boise State, and it really was good. But a lot of things happened there that kind of just changed the direction, because my life was football, go pro, retire early, that kind of thing. And my priorities changed. God changed them actually while I was at Boise State, and there was just a whole different, meaning to life, rather than, it was sports. Wow, that was just huge. That was everything. To stuff, I guess I would say it this way, stuff that was a little bit more eternal. Significantly more eternal. But anyway, and that just started down a path when I graduated from Boise State, which I did graduate. And I went to right out of Boise State, was asked to be an intern, working with young people at a church in Meridian, Idaho, Valley Shepherd Church of the Nazarene. And so I worked there, and eventually became full-time there. And it was there that a guy that I worked with, actually, the executive pastor, not the senior pastor, but the executive pastor, he obviously knew me, and he knew Colleen. And he kind of finagled some things, and that's actually how we met at a youth retreat. And he set us up, and it actually worked. But so,
well, I can tell you that I had known Colleen for several years. We sang in the same choir together, not together, but I mean just the same brotherhood that was a part of that. And Colleen was a known entity at EOU in a positive way. Okay, and so then. And so then it's like, so Colleen is single. She had newly been single, and it's like, I wonder who Colleen, it was like, and then all of a sudden, like, who's this robot looking dude that is hanging around with Colleen? I mean, he's like, he looks like something that a god created, and it was, you were a football dude, and you looked anyhow. So it was, I remember that, we were involved. I was involved in youth ministry at that time, and so was Colleen. And anyhow, I remember all of that era. So and it's like, yeah, your life was changed by Colleen, dude. That's,
well, that was a significant impact. Yeah. We found out during one of the first times that we went out that both of us were called to go into missions. Well, then stuff really started getting serious, and that was yeah. So I remember there was a man that came up to me, and it was after a Sunday evening service, and he said, "Bob, you need more tools in your toolbox." And I looked at him and I thought, man, you don't even know what's in my toolbox, man. And he pulled out a flyer for the seminary to go get a master's degree. And I said, oh, those kind of tools. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, we went off to seminary eventually and right out of seminary, that was a 3-year kind of a deal. Right out of seminary, we were sent to the Philippines and as missionaries. And for Colleen, that was going home, but for me, that was a new experience. And then from the Philippines to Ukraine, and then Ukraine to Poland, and then from Poland to Montana. So, and that's where we are now, is in Billings. So,
wow.
My sister is flying down to California in July. She's going to get her master's in theology at Life Pacific.
Oh, very good. Very, very good. All right.
Yeah, she went to EOU here. She's it's been kind of controversial. The church that she preached at, all the old heads didn't like women preaching. And my sister's only 27 years old. And she's up there. I mean, but she's pretty dang powerful, and it's that's what she wants to do, man. It's her mission, and that's what God's calling her to do.
There you go. Yeah. Well, so that's how you get from Eastern Oregon to all places around the world, and figure out that you can actually learn another language rather than Eastern Oregonian and all of that.
So, hey, if there are those of you who are listening that know Bob and Colleen, be sure and say something in the comments of Facebook, and we'll pull those in so that you can see that you're here. So, wow, what a journey for you guys. And I mean, I would imagine your heart kind of aches for the Ukrainians. I mean, I don't know. How does that feel? I mean, you're in Montana, you're a long ways away from them.
Yeah.
I don't know. Where are you at with all that?
Our hearts do hurt, and we do try to figure out what we can do. I think I've been thinking about it because we get asked by Ukrainians to help out in different ways. We get asked by other people that want to help them. They say, how can we help them? We're praying for them. We want to do that, but we also want to contribute, or we want to send something, or we want to do something concrete. And I've been thinking about that, and there are ways to do some concrete things. But one of the things I've been thinking about is, those people came out of communism for 80 years. And the whole thing about communism, just on a philosophical basis, is that, it's based on the idea of communism is that somewhere there is a thesis, and then there's an antithesis, and it results after a revolution in a synthesis. That's the philosophical approach, okay? Marx and Engels and all of those guys. But I guess what I'm saying is there's always in the mind, which this is Putin to the nth degree, there's always an enemy. There's always an antithesis. There's always somebody against you. Always. That's just the way, it's the rich and the poor, or whatever, however you want to describe it. But they always think that way. Well, I think one of the most powerful messages that we were able to bring as believers to the country of Ukraine, to Russia, to that entire part of the world, and that we still have, and that we have this message even in America today, especially in America today, is that something that we celebrated now it's been just over 2 months ago, 2.5 months ago, we celebrated Emmanuel. We celebrated God with us. And that's just an incredibly powerful message, is that we were, first of all, we are created, and that we're not created just to be, and that this system was set up of for and against and all of that. But that we were created, and that our Creator wants to fellowship, wants to be with us. And that's just a powerful message. It was a powerful message to the Ukrainians back in '95 that you know, we are here with you. And not just we, but we as the representatives from our church and from our God, and it's together, and that is a powerful message. That there's a lot tied to that. There's a lot that goes into that, and I'm just kind of going right over the top of it. I won't start preaching here.
You already are. It's okay though.
And so, but the thing is, Ukrainians heard that, they received that, they saw that from literally tens and tens, hundreds of thousands of Americans that came over and served with them, that dug ditches together, dug foundations together, built walls together for buildings, that served together in various ways. They did it together. They sweat together. They ate together. We were together. That's a powerful thing. Well, that needs to, in this war right now, they need that more than ever. They need to hear it, but they need to sense it. They need to experience it. And you know, by people sending and doing and even going, they will see that together, that it's where God is with us. And it's not just with me, but it's with us. Together, and that's just a powerful thing, and I think praying definitely, but our hearts do break. They are broken, but I mean, I received a message from some Ukrainians that said, hey, if you can send some financial assistance to this group, we will distribute it to refugees in Poland and Hungary and Slovakia, Romania, Moldova, and I mean, we know some trusted, how would I say, agencies, I guess I would say, that will do that. We'll get it to people that really need it. That's that with us kind of a thing. These crisis care kits that I talked about earlier, that's with us. That's the being together. So I don't know. That's kind of where we're at right now.
And from Ukraine, we were sent to Hungary and then to Poland. It has been so heartwarming for us to see the people that we worked with and ministered with in Hungary and Poland giving their personal phone numbers out to people in Ukraine, saying, if you can get across the border, call this number.
Or just to the border.
Stay with us. We will take you in. Live with us. It's just been beautiful to see the hands and hearts reaching out.
Wow. Good stuff.
Yep.
And we have some comments here from people. Yeah. Warren Sperry here. New Colleen at NNU. Another Northwesterner. Good stuff. Praying for the people of Ukraine.
Yeah. Thank you, Warren.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then Nina Walker. So happy to hear your hearts. They're having a quilting retreat, and there's several ladies together watching online.
Oh, Kathy Johnson. Yeah.
Yes,
awesome. Kathy Johnson said, "Great preaching, Bob." Right here. It's from Nina's a thing, but she said that those notes are from Kathy. So is Greg Armstrong with you guys?
Yeah. So Greg is a John Day kid, right?
Okay.
Yeah. He and I were in the same class. Yeah.
Yep. And yep.
And his daughter and son-in-law served in Ukraine as well.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Awesome.
Karen Horwood, great to see and hear your thoughts on Ukraine, Bob and Colleen. Sure, heartbroken for all the folks there. Prayers continue.
Wow.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. I hadn't thought, but I should reach out to Kent Hill. He would be really good to talk about Ukraine.
He knows the history.
I had been kind of trying to scratch my head for people who I could talk to, and I have his information. He would be very good at it. So.
You know that culture's tight when you got guys like Lomachenko, the #8 boxer pound for pound in the world.
Yeah.
Just going back and taking up arms. The Klitschkovs, right?
Yeah.
He's the mayor of Kyiv. His brother, they you can just totally tell that is a really tight culture.
Yeah.
Our world sucks.
Yeah, it does, but he is with us. That was your message, and that he includes us being with each other.
Indeed.
That's what you were saying, and I've said that throughout this whole mess is that it takes very little energy to be kind and compassionate to each other. And, people desperately need it. What a cool thing for people in Poland and Hungary, like what you said. That is, hey, come to our house. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's the way that we're supposed to help each other. So, well, you guys, thank you so much for taking the time to be here this morning. And
thank you.
Yeah, we'll have to have another conversation, you guys, and catch up about Montana and Wyoming and how you're doing. Bob and Colleen are the district superintendents for the Church of the Nazarene for the Rocky Mountain District, which is Wyoming and Montana. That's the district and the church that I grew up in, and so we have lots of connections there. So,
Jan said
there are many claps here that we love very, very much.
Yeah, I was home. I was in Kinnear not too long ago. Kinnear is kind of the center of my life, and was there. And the three families, the Hudson family and the Clapp family, they're still owned. Those places are only a mile from each other and still owned by family members, and it's just such a rich, wonderful culture.
Yeah.
It is.
Yep. All righty. Well, thanks you guys so much. We'll catch up with you soon, hopefully again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, man.
Back to normal.
Yeah.
That threw me off. I didn't know we were going in the weird shape. On this day, March 1st, 1872, the U.S. Congress authorized the creation of Yellowstone National Park. It was the world's first national park. On this day in 1873, Remington Sons of Ilion, New York, began manufacturing the first practical typewriter. On this day in 1937, Remington and Sons. On this day in 1937 in Connecticut, the first permanent automobile license plates were issued. 1937. 1973, Pink Floyd released Dark Side of the Moon on this day. And then finally in 1995, there's nothing important after 1995, apparently. Yahoo was incorporated. 27 years ago. Yahoo. Incorporated. The #1 song in the country on this day. Vanessa Williams. This is 1992. Saved the Best for Last.
That's a good
30
tune.
years ago. And then finally the quote of the day. Let's get to the quote of the day. It's S. Anja, and it is, the sun is a daily reminder that we too can rise again from darkness, that we too can share our own light. That's all we got for you. Boom.
Good stuff. Thank you,
Tuesday.
Eastern Oregon, for tuning in, and thank you for our guest for coming in to see Bob and Colleen. And Bob and Colleen, thanks so much for jumping in with us, and we'll see you all Thursday right here, 8 a.m.